Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is the Stephen Hour, and this is a very special episode to commence really the end of the first season of the Noire Files. Now, the Noire Files is a very interesting project I've been doing on this channel because it's not like movie reviews, it's not like TV show reviews, and it's not even like top 10s. This is purely storytelling, or at least my attempt at it. And honestly, I honestly like doing this series. Now, I can agree that maybe the quality of my videos are not perfect. And I don't mind them not being perfect. In a way, it's sort of like a reminder to those like, I guess, I forgot what the word is, um, like these warehouse films, I think it is, where you see these videos, they're not entirely perfect, they have a bit of flaws, but they are absolutely enjoyable. That's what I like with this series. It's my thing of that. They're not perfect, but they are definitely fun for me to create. So I was wondering, well, what's this special video about? Well, this is a special behind the scenes, or at least more in depth to how I created my my villain characters. Now, this will be purely on the villain characters, and I plan to do another special video commencing the more in depth to the members of the actual Crime Busters. Now, as we all know, I really kind of had to make up this series as I went along, and for the first season, I just wanted to just do villain characters, and it was really hard for me, well, and it's though been really fun to create these characters, it's also at the same time hard for me to get a video out, because I've now have this, well, like I said, I like making videos, but then you get to a point where you're just too tired to even make one, or it becomes stressful, and you have other series you want to do as well, and the hard thing is to sort of break it up in between. That is something I found really hard to do. Not saying I hate making this series, I absolutely do, but I think definitely to the end of the first season, this series will be taking a very long break. Probably 2 months, to be honest, before we kick up the next season. So hopefully you can enjoy this video with the behind the scenes and where the creativeness for these villains came from. Some are creative, some are not. And also where can I fully explain how I do my videos. And yeah, I really enjoy this. And hopefully for you, you have been watching the series and had some enjoyment out of it yourself. And let's get on with it. Let's get on with how I created my characters. Now, this is the first case the so-called Noire Reed went up against. Now, this was way before he became a member of the Crime Busters. To be fair, I didn't come up with that until the second case. This was like my first attempt at creating something. Now, you can definitely hear in the audio, I was not confident in reading my character yet. And that's because, honestly, the rest I later got for the remaining characters, I ended up actually scripting. This was sort of, I've written notes and just rambled on as I went along. Because, again, at the time of making these, I'm not really a huge fan of reading scripted. I prefer, it just didn't feel natural to me at the time. Now, for these series, it does. And that's how I'm going with it from now on. I'll have these scripted. Now, a slasher killer is, again, my love of the horror film. Those 80s slasher films where you had these criminals, or at least these killers, dressed up in a weird costume and killing people. And of course, the name Mike Cunningham is actually a reference to two of my favorite slashers, or at least horror films of the 80s. One, Mike comes from like Michael Myers. You can get where the Mike bit came from. And Cunningham actually comes from the movie Christine, Arnie Cunningham. And you can definitely see that the more of the Arnie is really it. The idea was to combine the two personalities. Arnie is this kid that got bullied, ridiculed too much to the point where he snapped and became a sort of Michael Myers character, killing teenagers, particularly criminals, not criminals, but particularly teenagers who are criminals in their own right, at least bullies. You despise them. that is the character I wanted to create, the combining of those two to the point where you feel sympathy, but at the same time you are appalled by his actions. When you understand the story of how he became this, you come up to your own conclusion how you feel about him. Also during this video, during like my first video, like I said, he was a rookie detective. He was finally promoted detective. This was his first case. And I just really thought this was a good way just to really have a new cop on the beat going up against this weird whack job. And it was sort of slowly the turning point for more of the weirdos to come out of the woodworks. Also, another thing I really did about this video is it did my first, like you hear at the beginning and end of videos, you hear like this theme song, this song. The idea was this is a reference to, like, when you see Batman the animated series, all the villains have a theme song. You know, or if a villain has a song when they appear. The idea was when the episode opens, this is their song. This will be their theme. And I knew that this just fitted that character perfectly. And because he is a love of the slashers, I realized what was more appropriate than get this villain to have Michael Myers' theme, because he is slightly based on Michael Myers. The Halloween series, the original theme song, you know, that just for me fit perfectly with this character. That's all I could say about him. And yes, the quality for this first video is not perfect. In fact, for a lot of my videos, the quality and overall sound I struggle with. Sometimes they will work, sometimes they won't. I struggle to just try and make it. Again, this is a new project and was very new, and not everything was fully out there. Overall, this was my first attempt. I look back on him, I plan to bring this character back, but make it that he is so much changed or devolved from being a sympathetic character to being the complete opposite. Most of these characters I've done the first season will be back in the second season, but I don't know how long I want to have him. This is a character, hopefully by the end of the second season, I plan to have him sort of shipped to Hillbrook, where he's so gone. I know that, like, this city can't help him. He needs to go to Hillbrook for medical treatment. What happens to him there will be completely different. Let's get on to the second one. My second character. Smooth Criminal. Doesn't take a brainer to figure out where this character got heavily inspired by. I mean, the opening theme is smooth, for his theme song is Smooth Criminal song by Michael Jackson. Now, I'm a huge Michael Jackson fan, and for me, what I was creating a character that was supposed to be a reminiscent of the gangsters from the 20s and the 30s, I realized that this was the song for him. And the backstory of growing up on a farm is inspired by many of these gangsters from the 30s. So these rural bandits going up against, you know, the robbing banks and going up against the FBI, and held the name John Floyd is a reference to two notorious outlaws of the day, John Dillinger and Arthur Pretty Boy Floyd. And I decided that I wanted this character just to be like, you just know that he is a gangster. He dresses like an old school gangster, and this is a modern time, so he just kind of stands out, but at the same time blends in. His favorite weapon of choice is a Thompson submachine gun. Again, this character is a love letter to the rural bandits and those gangsters of the day. And I also did it that sort of, he was to be solely a part of a dying breed. Like, there's more rural bandits, but one's more, and it's just like, I'll get to those videos later, or at least the character analysis later. But here, this character is just a love of that. Also, this video was the first time where I have, like, when you have these action scenes, there's music that emphasizes it. That was the first time I did it, and it worked for me. And yeah. And also the Crime Busters, the proper squad, came into being because of that, and was sort of reflective of the FBI. Like, when they first took down their big #1 target, John Dillinger, really put him on the map. It was the same to mirror with this. When we took him down, well, my squad, the supposed Reed's squad took him down, the idea that this would be their big break, their big takedown, and would really show. And the idea is that they would take down some of the city's most notorious criminals, but at the same time, criminals from abroad that end up in the city. And Though he does have a, and another thing also was inspired by this character was, of course, the constant gangster reference, at least from the Rule Bandit references, and the overall just the, like, he's a Robin Hood type thing. He's a gangster with a code. He prefers to plan his crimes to a T, and he's a bit of an arrogant show-off a little bit, but not fully. So, and that bit of the character came from the Riddler. You see, in many ways, all the villains I have made have a little reference, at least are partly inspired by Batman villains. This guy has a bit of, I guess you could say, the Penguin. He is as a gentleman. He's sort of like a gentleman thief, but he dresses, but instead of like a Victorian, he switched for a 1920s gangster. And pretty much that's what he is. He's my answer to the Riddler, and also like how I diversify because he is of a different ethnicity. How he is, African American, but that's because the image I use is of Michael Jackson. The idea is just to mix things up. And how the slasher killer is a combination of both the Scarecrow, well, soon to be Scarecrow, and Victor Zsasz. And yeah, this is smooth. Texas. Okay, Clint Wayne. Clearly we can get the reference. John Wayne and Clint Eastwood. My love for the westerns. Just like, and is more in line with the Rule Bandits. Again, I was going through a period where I love listening to watching these Rule Bandit movies, of the gangsters of the 20s, but also like those Western movies of the 50s and 60s. I wanted to do a character that was inspired by that. But this character was also meant to be also a love of another Western character I liked, and it actually came from Batman. Shame, the 60s Batman villain? I was inspired by that. But whilst other villains were kind of like, the idea was to also diversify their origins, you see. And I also want to diversify the origins. You see, the slasher killer's origin was one you could feel sympathy to. He was bullied relentlessly. You could arguably he didn't have a chance. It was going to end up. Smooth was like he was always born bad, or at least he was a rebel spirit. That's the kind of thing. He was a rebel spirit. This guy, I want to be born into this life, and he had, and believe it or not, he was a good guy. He was a good kid in school, but all that shit. But I wanted to add a realism to what would make him change. And so I decided what happened, because what happened? Well, his ideology could slowly start to change when he was a law enforcement officer, because I thought, cowboy, Wild Wild West, the Wild Wild West, the law enforcement around then was the sheriffs, and their thing was a bit of black and white with a hint of gray. So I thought, what would happen if he was once point a cop? And how we can make that relate to Molten City? Well, how about an incident where he met some of our finest, who of course were crooked to the bone, and he made a career about busting crooked cops, which would play a key role in his story later on in the episode. As a result, the character eventually became an army man, because I thought, well, I wanted him to have a believable break. So imagine the guy's love for the Old West and a love of duty, love of honor. So he became an army man, and during his time in the war, he suffered PTSD. And when as he come back, he's still suffering for it, and he is in a worse place. He's lost his wife, his kids are slowly walking that line of crookedness and being honest. And in order to escape that, he's watching all these westerns. Now in that, under all that pressure, he finally snaps and becomes this crazy person. His love for Western characters, the cowboys, he becomes Texas, a cowboy villain that goes around robbing banks. And I always wanted him to be the first Rule Bandit. And as a result, guys like Smooth and the Man in Black were once members of his gang, but they've had problems working with him in the past. For me, I already knew that was a perfect way to go for this character. that was the way to take this the direction of the character. And then of course after, and of course his sons also get involved in crime, which is a reference to another rural bandit known as the Barkers and Carpers gang, where the gang was supposedly led by Ma Barker. Whether that's true or not is still debated today, although to be fair, in most recent years it's debated that she was never a member of the gang. The only crime she did commit, that she would, accompany her sons. She would be an accomplice, but not in the robberies. So you do get a little bit of a reference. I want to do a bit of a reference. And yeah, and of course eventually his mind deteriorates to the point where he eventually starts a war in Moulton by going after crooked cops. I thought that was a good story to go with. And the idea that a Western outlaw, going up against crooked cops, going up against cops, was something that happened quite a lot in the old Western days. The sheriffs up against the outlaw cowboys. I thought that's just like a bit of poeticness there. And of course, he's deteriorated his mind so badly that he now believes he is an actual real-life cowboy. And I already know a story I want to do in the next season, where he teams up with two of his former proteges, the Man in Black and the Smooth Criminal, and they create this new gang, which is going to be a huge reference to a lot of old Western movies. With their number one crime they always pull on, but I'll get to that. But you have to wait for that video for the next season. Next is The Man in Black. Now, I'm a huge fan of Michael Jackson, but I'm always a huge fan of Johnny Cash. The Man in Black. I love country music, and the idea was because I was still going through these Rural Bandit things, and already Smooth was a criminal, master thief who said he could never get caught. He did. Texas was a gun-wielding Smith. What we could do with, Carl Cash, which of course the name reference is of Carl Perkins, a rockabilly artist and guy who wrote the original Blue Suede Shoes. Elvis didn't do it first. He did. And of course Cash, Johnny Cash. I wanted to have a bit of, he is a bit of Johnny Cash. He is an outlaw rebel. And he did have a similar life upbringing, at least to like what you see. But most of the things I get is from the biopic Walk the Line, which was one of my first ever movie reviews I ever did on my channel. But I wanted to make him normal, and he also has a poet, and his story is a bit poetic. He lived the American dream. He worked hard, and he had success. And it was also the idea to open up the story to this city's underworld, because I wanted to do something different with the city's underworld and how it was run. So I decided to come up with 5 criminal organizations that run the city. And this is of course the mafia, the triads, the Russians, the cartel, and the Haitians. Basically, these guys run the show. But also, even though they run their organizations run the city, there are other minor criminal organizations that are a part of it. And I knew that this was exactly where I wanted to go. This character was to be a bridge door into opening this world that you're about to see. This other criminal organization. But also, a lot of the gangsters are dying out. And of course, although he was the last of the Rural Bandit, he was the city's biggest hitman. The idea is that each season, there's going to be that one big notorious hitman at the time, but each are different. This guy is normal, but he eventually loses it all because of his association with the Rural Bandits that end up coming to the city. He becomes an outcast. He loses everything. He loses his wife, he loses his kids, he loses his job, everything, and he becomes a has-been. And the idea is, instead of accepting the blame that he is responsible, he puts the blame on my character because I'm always around. I'm always trying to get him. And so basically, he's a person that is normal. We're all this type of person. When things go and hit the fan, sometimes there's 2 ways you can go. You can accept blame. It was your responsibility. It was your fault. Or you go after the person or you can go after the person who really never really did it, instead of accepting blame. The idea is for this character to eventually redeem himself, find out that it really was his fault, and, you know, be rehabilitated. I already know this is the direction I want the character to go. However, whether that's going to happen or not in the next season or possibly season 3, I definitely know that's where I want to take this character. And of course the musical, and of course for his theme, you had to have Folsom Prison Blues, as you know, at least a Johnny Cash song for his theme. You just had to have that. Just as like for Texas, I got the Good and the Bad and the Ugly as his theme, because that just fits so perfectly. I knew exactly that's what I wanted to do. Anyway, yeah, and of course the music references where he is a musician, again, a reference to Johnny Cash, and at the end where he formed his own prison band, a nice reference to Johnny Cash's live performance in the prisons, because believe it, an interesting history fact, Johnny Cash did do live prison concerts. So the idea was a little reference to that. Rumpelstiltskin. Now, like I said, each character by this point is referenced by something. At least by either a Batman villain, or at least have had their references from other forms of media. You have the Old West, you have the 30s gangsters, slasher killers of the 80s, and of course, you know, these artists from the 50s that rose to prominence and, you know, but quickly lost it. For this guy, I wanted a huge Joker reference, or at least a Heath Ledger and Joaquin Phoenix Joker reference. The idea that he comes out of nowhere, his entire backstory is a mystery, and he looks weird. I wanted him to give a real life, like he has some kind of rare skin deformity, and he just comes out of nowhere. He has the personality of the Joker, and he wants to play this game to the end of time, because he's somehow, you know, he has this kind of weird obsession with my character, with the Reed character, and instantly, you know, this is how the character's gonna go. He is the Joker. He will cause chaos for whatever he wants, whatever he wants. Nothing's gonna stop him. He is a complete mystery, and the character is just gonna keep going from there. And I just liked how his presence. We've had gangsters that are a bit odd. We've had, you know, and we've had a slasher killer. The idea was to return to creating these more weird, whack job serial killers or anarchists, really. And for me, this was just the perfect way to bring that back. Because after being stuck in this rule bandit phase, for me, it just made perfect sense to do this for a new character, and it worked. And I thought it worked. Though I will admit, my problem was, would I be able to sell this character? Because again, the look of the character is Rumpelstiltskin from Once Upon a Time, and it's a bit mystical, but he's also a bit, if you look at him, would you buy a skin deformity like this existing in the real world? Well, that's the thing. Some things haven't been discovered yet, so it's a bit of mystery there. And I just thought that it would work. I would make it work. And basically that's where we wanted to go. We wanted to bring that back. And just like Slasher Killer, this was one of my first videos where I never had a foreshadowing for a new criminal to come in the woodworks. You see, with guys like Texas, The Man in Black, and Smooth Criminal, all their villains, I've had Easter egg drop for a new villain to come back. I thought this was a perfect idea to go, and we're gonna do it this way. Let's see how we work it out. And I know that he will definitely be back for another season for the biggest team up at the end of season 2. Season 2 is going to be a lot different and a lot bigger and a lot bolder. But yeah, we also had a few name drops in this episode for new characters to have a bigger story in other episodes in the series. But we'll get to that. Now, next one. Rockabilly. Now, also, before we move on, I want to say Rumpelstiltskin's theme song was hard to find, so I went with a theme song of Angel. I felt that was just something heavy, depressing. It was really hard to find a theme for him, But I went with that because I don't know, but something just, I felt clicked. Maybe it wouldn't work, maybe it would, just went with it. Rockabilly. A love of 50s rock and roll. Just as, and I just wanted to have the idea of the Spike's, well, with the, with the Spectre, which Rumpelstiltskin character was, the Spectre's presence. All these other whack jobs were coming out. And this guy, he's a lost soul. He has no purpose in life. But when Spectre's appearance, something clicks, he has an epiphany, he wants to be rock. He wants to live life to the fullest. And that's what most rock and roll artists are. They live fast and die young. And that's him. And I also liked how he plays a part in the role in the origin of Brett, who is essentially supposed to be my series Robin, or at least, that kid character that was always around with the hero characters, not just in comics, but early movie serials, which is partly where I got the inspiration for the series. Partly, and those TV shows. The idea was to create a character like that, and have a character like this who literally has no conscience, he has no morals, he has no redeemable traits, and the idea that he was born bad. He knew his life wanted to become a criminal, but unlike city bandits, unlike kids that grew up in the country, he grew up in the city, and he's been on out, and the idea he was on the radar, and yeah. The theme song is, of course, Johnny Be Good. I thought, you're gonna have guys' theme, has to be a rock and roll song from the 50s, and whatnot, have what is arguably considered the best rock and roll song of the 50s, Johnny Be Good, Give It, theme song nailed. And of course, Rockabilly is a reference to the genre of music, and I like how he has a real name, he has a alias, and then his professional nickname. Again, I wanted to him be a professional criminal, and a criminal would have more than one name. For me, that just made sense for me to do that for his character. And he will definitely be back, but he's mostly going to be playing henchman type characters. But that's the thing, for him, he is a blind follower, and I feel that just wouldn't work for his character. And it was also a way to really introduce more of these hoods who are trying to find an identity now. Or just there'll be some kind of thug with a gimmick. But for him, the gimmick of him being a 50s rock and roll kind of heavy fits well into the motive. And the image for the character, I was just thinking of just getting a normal 50s greaser. But then I saw Spike, from the TV show Buffy, and I just knew that was the perfect mold or image for the character. I knew that was where we needed to go with this character. Storyteller, another Batman villain, villain that was inspired by the Batman 66 TV show, the Bookworm. I knew a storyteller villain was great. We needed a compelling origin, and this character's story is not yet complete. He still hasn't completed his one mission in life. And that is, of course, to kill the man responsible for the death of his, the woman he loved and his unborn child. He's inspired by Jigsaw, but also has a bit of a reference to Riddler because of his, because of the death traps and the idea that he's become this storyteller. So he has two missions in life: to write books, but in his warped mind, he brings his books to life by creating these death traps because he's stuck. He can't think of anything else to write. And I thought, yeah, that's where we needed to go. We needed to go with that. And yeah, that's where we needed to go with that. And the image that you see on the screen is actually taken from Noire Files. It was an old TV show I used to watch, and I thought for a storyteller, I just thought this would be, it's mysterious, it's odd looking, and the idea that the character would slowly evolve into being a sort of Blofeld character as this huge criminal organization, because he's become this killer he created in his stories, whose, of course, modus operandi originally was just to kill people who looked like fairy tale and dressed up like fairy tale characters. That was originally it, but I planned for this character to evolve into being a fictional villain, what you would see in these action-adventure stories, creating these massive plots to not just sell his books, but to live out his books. And the character is to actually evolve into Blofeld, into a Blofeld clone, sort of. And for me, that is just the perfect way to take this character for me. I see no way else. I can actually see this be a really great way for this character to really evolve and to become this really big criminal. I see no way around it. I know this is where I'm going to take my character for the next series, for the next story. Now, Captain Hook, a reference to Batman's Mad Hatter. Think about it. You have this super book, you have this children's book, or in this case, children's play, and there's a character that a person becomes. And I knew that, yeah, let's have a person who thinks he's Captain Hook. He's had a tragic backstory, and he thinks he is the character, and and just as the Mad Hatter wants to find his Alice, this character wants to find Peter and Wendy. You know, two people that he really cares about. He wants them back, and I like how he's this criminal. He's a swashbuckler. Now, I definitely know for characters like that won't really work well in comics, and I thought let's give this a crack. Basically, for him, he's the Mad Hatter and the Cavalier in one. I knew instantly that was a really good character to go to. And of course, another name drop for another character who will have his own episode in season 2, along with others like General Man and Claw. I want to have him be in season 2. Lucifer, he was another character. Overall, this was just a really fun villain for me to do. He's a love of the old swashbucklers. Now, with Storyteller, you had the theme song of like this ballerina song. I knew that would be an excellent theme song for him. But for Swashbuckler, you had to get a pirate theme. And for me, Pirates of the Caribbean just fit well. And for the image, I remember now, Peter Pan movies aren't really my favorites. But there was this one from 2003 I liked the most, mostly because of the look of Captain Hook. I really felt that character was really brought very well to life. And for me, looking at this, I knew, yeah, this is what we need. This is what we want to go. And the idea that he is to slowly evolve to still finding hope that his love is still out there. And I want to, for his new story, is that he wants to find love. In his mission to find his brother and his brother's wife, I also want that he slowly finds love. And for me, I knew exactly that this will be an interesting way to take the character so much. There's so many possibilities you could take with this one, and I just know that I've got plenty in store for season 2. Henry VIII. Okay, a combination of Maxie Zeus from the Batman comics, but also King Tut from Batman 66. But basically, when creating this character, I realized, okay, if we can't do Maxie Zeus, because we already got it, because we can't do anything from Greek mythology, because that's already done. We can't do anything from Egypt, because that's been already done. What can we use? I don't want to use Rome, because that's too similar to Greece. So I thought, let's look at something medieval. And for a while, I've been just struggling on which character to use. Or this real-life king, Henry VIII, or King Richard the Lionheart, or even King John. But then I saw his episode of Horrible Histories, and I see this actor playing Henry VIII. I knew that's who we need. That is who we need to play this character. That's who we need for this character. Let's go with it. So basically, it's a combination of Tut and Maxie Zeus. Maxie Zeus, and I just like how this episode is a nice little reference to that. And we also introduced another gangland criminal, sort of the Reggie Mob, as basically an all-British gang, which makes sense for a rival for King Henry VIII, who is supposed to be a British king, to be a British mobster. Again, I want to create more gangster characters. Just normal gangster characters, as they're going to play a huge role in Season 3. And yeah, he's definitely will be coming back for Season 2 for at least a story I have definitely written and see huge possibilities with. Overall, I just know that this is perfect. And of course, the theme song was taken from Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, because I realized for his theme song it had to be something of like a medieval time. or at least true to times. And for me, that song just worked. I was originally thinking of Holiday Histories as a nice little reference, as his image is taken from Holiday Histories, but I thought, nah, it just wouldn't work from him. I felt this was a good choice. Was a good choice. Now, Killer Frog, clearly my version of Killer Moth, but I wanted to. And basically, when you think of Killer Moth, you basically think he is this nerd who loved reading all the supervillain comics and wants to be one himself, but isn't made out of the right stuff. For me, it made perfect sense for the character to be that. That's also what's laughable than a moth? I thought frog, great. Let's go with that. That's stupid. But what else can we do with this character? As in, what image could we do? And I just remember Kick-Ass, though I found that to be a fun film. I always agreed. I thought the costume was silly, but I thought that could work. Let's roll with it. And again, his whole story is pretty much a mirror image to Killer Moth. But also Batman 66, like with that TV show being stupid, funny, and goofy. And I knew that's where I wanted to go. Now the theme song, and of course, all the characters are referenced to something. At least their names are. Rockabilly had Dean Zuko as a criminal name, a reference to James Dean, a famous 50s teen idol, and of course Danny Zuko from the 1970 movie Grease. But of course his real name is, Rickabilly, hence he got his nickname Rockabilly, Rockabilly, you get that, or Rockabillington, you just get it. The storyteller is Charles King, or Charlie King, references to two famous authors, Charles Dickens and Stephen King. I knew that, for a villain who's basically a criminal based on story, you had to go with that. Then of course you got the swashbuckler, Captain Hook. Captain Hook's name was a reference to Mortimer Drake, the Cavalier villain from the Batman comics. And then, of course, Flynn, Errol Flynn, the guy that played the swashbuckling hero in Robin Hood, but also did a lot of pirate movies. I thought it was just like a nice reference. King Henry VIII. His name is a reference to the three Blofelds. Savalas, Tilly Savalas, Pleasance, Donald Pleasance, and then Grey, Charles Grey. All three names are derived from Blofelds. I thought that this would be a nice character, and because of him being English, you had to have three, and I just thought this just worked for me. Killer Frog, his name, as a reference, Sydney, Sid, as in Sid the Squid, that loser, like, wannabe gangster, who was a real loser from Batman the Animated Series, and Walker is a reference to Cameron Walker, the Killer Moth character, which is essentially what really inspired the character. And automatically, I know that this character is going to have a very tragic ending in the series. I definitely say that. And I already planned out this character. And the theme song, The Addams Family, I just thought it's just funny, it's goofy, and I just thought that just fits the character well. Now, number 12 and 13 are my versions of the ventriloquist and Scarface, but I wanted to do it differently. So let's have a father and son duo. And usually the father has all the, control of the relationship. Flip it on its side to have the son be it instead of the opposite, the other way around. And automatically they're just a gangster pair. And I just like how he's a blind old man. He's nice, he's caring, doesn't want to harm anyone. But his son, who dresses like a sophisticated criminal, sophisticated gentleman, is a sadistic bastard deep down. For me, I just knew that was a perfect way to take this duo character. And I just like that. I don't know where the character's gonna go. Unlike all the characters, I at least have a vision to where they're gonna go. For these two pairings, I don't. And of course, the picture is taken from In Scent of a Woman. The reason why, because I wanted to have a character you could believe that was a gangster. Who else than Al Pacino? But also a nice, humble old man who wouldn't hurt anyone. For me, it made Al Pacino just made a bit more sense to me. And his name, Sal Marcano, is a reference to the video game. You know, with the Mafia 3, you had Sal Marcano and his son, Georgie Marcano. I was thinking of a criminal name, I thought, how about Senior and Junior? Just made sense. You have a father and son pair. Originally, the names were supposed to be that of famous comic strip characters, or at least cartoon characters. Originally, this guy was supposed to be Magoo, but I just thought it just wouldn't really work. Senior and Junior just sounded better. And of course, the theme is that of the Mr. Bean's animated series theme. I just thought it just kind of worked. It kind of worked for Senior. I'm not sure if it really worked well with Junior, I will be honest, but I just thought that it just would. Now, speaking of Junior, basically, he is the Scarface of the pair, the one with the most control. He is also a sadistic bastard. He looks like a gentleman. He looks like just a nice, ordinary kid, but he's actually a brutal, sadistic bastard. For me, I just knew that this was exactly where I needed for that. And the idea that he looks like Richie was because in my mind, I thought originally that was his criminal alias, so I thought it made sense for the picture to be that of Richie. I honestly just really liked the characters, and I thought they would really play well against each other. Basically, they're just like this interesting duo character. You're not really even the gang, they don't really know who's really in control of the mob. Is it really the father who has the more experience and people look up to, or is it the one they're scared of? It's again, the question of who really runs the gang is a mystery, or at least something I want to run with in the series. And I don't know their overall fates, or what's gonna happen to these two. I don't even know how I want to even end these two. Oh, their final chapter, really. I just don't know, but I knew that this is just a perfect idea for these characters. And that's it. This is the end of this video. It's definitely a long video, 40 minutes, but I really wanted to take a chance to really go deep down and in-dive to the creation of these characters. Now, I will do season 2, I'll maybe do another special video somewhere down the line, and I just know that I just want to take this opportunity to really fully explain the characters, the creation, where I get them from. It's a bit rushed, it may not sound right in the video, and I definitely know after working on my first season, I definitely will have, hopefully, planned for the next episodes just to be far better in quality, hopefully in writing. Even though I really felt that my writing for the first season was pretty good, but it's clearly that it's an anthology thing. The next season, I want to have the episodes be more intertwined, rather than foreshadowing another episode, like to have the stories be more interconnected. And this two-parter with Senior and Junior is my first. I thought for the ending of the first season, a two-parter is necessary. Have a duo team up. This just seemed very well to go in that direction, honestly. As for the future of this series, again, I definitely still intend to make season 2. There will be more new villainous characters to be introduced, and season 2 will be divided into two parts. One will be just introducing new characters. The second will be these, what I like to call special team-ups, which will lead to the finale of the season, where I have my first ever super villain team of the new guys, of some of the populars I introduced in the new season, and old favorites. And I am already ecstatic. I know exactly where I'm gonna go. Hopefully you guys will absolutely enjoy the second season when it comes out, but it won't be for a while. And just keep tuning into the channel for new videos, whether it's TV show reviews, movie reviews, top 10s. Hopefully, I'm even thinking of maybe doing some gaming reviews, or just like some gaming stuff. Who knows? Basically, I do whatever I feel like I want to have fun with. I definitely have fun with this series. I have fun creating it, but I will admit it is sometimes tiresome to come up with these characters, writing and creating the videos. It can be sometimes tiresome. But yeah, this is the end of this anyway. Enough said. This is the Steven Hour, and enjoy the rest of your day, and hope you really enjoyed this video. Goodbye.